I think a lot of business owners think like, oh, I'm just, too small. I don't really need a trademark yet. I don't have to put money into like the legal side of things yet, or like no one else is going to copy me. No one else is going to know my name, whatever. And then when they do go to, pursue a trademark, they realize someone else already has something that's very similar.
Hello, and welcome to the Attorney Post, where we give you the inside scoop with top attorneys in their field. And now, here's our host, Justin West.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Attorney Post, where we discuss what's going on in various facets of the law with lawyers at the top of their game to help you navigate the various ins and outs of various legal fields and jurisdictions. Because, as I always say, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by Kelli Jones, who runs the eponymous law firm that bears her name, Kelli Jones Law. She focuses on trademark issues and whatnot. We're going to be talking about all that today. Kelli, how are you doing this morning?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing good. Thank you very much for jumping on the call today. We're going to jump over and take a look at your website. The law firm is, again, Kelli, that's Kelli, kellyjoneslaw.com. And we will have a link, as always, to her all of her stuff in the description down below. So if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're on any of the podcast repositories, please jump down there and you can take a look at her website. She's got a great looking website. Can I just say she is registered? She has an incredible success rate with registering trademarks and everything else. She's worked with tons and tons of people. It's a really unique legal niche. We don't talk to people in this niche very much, and I'm really kind of curious to see who she's worked with and what roadblocks she's run into. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. But if you have a legal issue, a trademark issue, and you're interested in working with Kelli, please feel free to search her out. That is, again, kellyjoneslaw.com. Link, as always, in the description down below. Before we get started, we are going to read from our sponsors. Our first sponsor is, where is it? Right there. Search Sift. Quick question. When somebody searches for a lawyer or a business in your market, are you actually winning, or are you just paying to stay in the game? Because things like Google Ads, they're an auction, and the more firms bidding, the more expensive those clicks get. But before anyone ever clicks or does a search, before SEO ever kicks in, Google is already suggesting what people should search next. And that is where Search Sift comes in. That's SYFT, Search Sift. Search Sift helps position your business or your firm inside of the predictive search so that instead of competing just for attention, you're influencing the search before the decision is made. And here's the kicker. You don't just pay to rank, you only pay when somebody actually clicks on your website. So instead of overpaying for the same leads, you get in front of the decision earlier. Visit searchsift.com to figure out what your market looks like. And they've actually requested we do this live. So can I actually do this with you really quickly? I'm going to use you as an example, Kelli, just because I have you on hand. I'm going to go to google.com and we're just going to take a look here. So you do trademark law. So if I look up trademark lawyer, I actually ran this earlier so you could see the suggestion there. And I do the search. You're going to find people up here advertising. You will find I'm in the Kansas City area, so you'll find local lawyers here. But then there's ads and there's directories and everything else. Obviously, you're not on here, but you're not in my neck of the woods, I don't think. So I'm not expecting to find you locally. However, when we're typing this in, you will notice that Google starts suggesting things. Sometimes it'll suggest particular people. Sometimes it'll suggest places or whatever it happens to be. But if Google were to auto-suggest something like this, let's say Kelli Jones Law. Kelli Jones Law. Now, all of a sudden, you're basically the only thing people find. You're in the AI overview and everything else. And so whoever is watching this, this is what SearchSift does. And they wanted me to go ahead and show an example. So I figured, you know what, we'll just show a nice one, because now all of a sudden, if somebody is in, I don't know if you work in every state or not. I feel like trademark law is one of those where you can work with just about anybody.
Yep.
So if someone in California or Florida or Maine or Oregon does a search like this, all of a sudden, someone like you could turn up. So if you do personal injury law, if you do criminal defense, if you're an HVAC, it doesn't matter who you are. This is a service that can work for almost anyone that wants to be found in search, and it works a lot faster than things like traditional SEO, and it works a lot cheaper than things like pay-per-click. So that is searchsift.com. Our second sponsor for today is Groove Funnels, and they are right here. Running an online business should mean paying for 12 different tools before you've even made the sale. That's why there's Groove. Groove gives entrepreneurs, creators, and marketers one platform to build funnels, checkouts, emails, memberships, e-commerce sites, blogs, webinars, affiliates, automations, and more. And what's really cool is it's completely free. I kid you not. You can literally set up a site, start selling things. There is no cost. They make almost all their money just by taking a little percentage of whatever it is you're selling. But if you're trying to start up whatever kind of an online business you want to run, it can get very, very expensive very, very quickly. Hundreds and hundreds of dollars in subscriptions for webinars and platforms like ClickFunnels and everything else. This is a free solution. I've used it to build out multiple sites myself, so I'm not just advertising it. I actually believe in it, and you can use it for free by visiting theattorneypost.com/groove. We'll have a link to that as well in the description down below. That's theattorneypost.com/groove. It's run by internet marketing legend Mike Phil Same and his whole team. And it really is, it's a zippy, fast, and very neat little platform. And again, you don't even have to put in a credit card. There is no cost to use the platform. So if you've never tackled something like this before, this can be a really great way to get your feet wet. That is theattorneypost.com/groove. Alrighty, now that we got those out of the way, we'll come back here and talk to our guests. So I'm talking again with Kelli Jones, and Kelli is the founder of Kelli Jones Law, PLC, which is an online trademark and business law firm built for entrepreneurs. With a particular passion for helping women-owned businesses protect their brands, after experiencing the frustrations of a traditional law firm culture firsthand, including being undervalued, underpaid, and talked down to as a woman, Kelli launched her online firm in 2020 to create what she calls a new era of legal for entrepreneurs. Her practice focuses on trademark filings, legal subscriptions, and one-on-one legal strategy sessions for business owners who want to protect their brands, their contracts, and their intellectual property. Kelli earned her JD from Hofstra University of Law. She's admitted in New York and Tennessee and has represented clients in more than 18 courts across New York. That's a mouthful, and I don't think I even scratched the surface, really. So my first question to you, Kelli, as always, is what did I miss? Tell me about you. Who are you? What do you do? Tell me the fun stuff.
Yeah, so I'm from New York, but I'm currently living in Nashville. I've been here a couple of years now. Not for music though, unlike a lot of other people that move to
But do
Nashville.
you sing
For fun, yes.
in the
I
shower, in the car? Right?
I do like country music, so I'm in the right place for that. I like to travel. I play the piano. Um, and my what I do most is probably just try different places around Nashville because there's a different restaurant or coffee shop popping up every single day. So I love trying new places in Nashville and all around the world also.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I've never actually been to Nashville, but I've heard so many good things. And I'm not a huge country music fan, but I do like a little bluegrass and a little folk. So I'm sure I'd find some good
So,
niches down there that
yes, you can
I would probably
find
jive in quite
any
nicely.
type of music here. So yes.
And living in a place like that, I'm sure there are an unlimited number of options for places to eat and fun things to do and all the stuff.
Yes.
So it sounds like a lovely place to live. So you moved down to Nashville. What brought you down to Nashville? Was it just I want to live here or?
Yeah, it was kind of just I liked it when I visited and I wanted to try a smaller city than New York and also hopefully one with less snow. So, yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. My listeners know I actually live in a tiny little town. We're on the outskirts of Kansas City. It's how I tell most people where we live. But I actually live in Atchison, Kansas, which is the birthplace of Amelia Earhart. But it's 7 square miles and 10,000 people, so it's tiny, tiny. So people talk about Nashville as a smaller town. I'm like, this like 200 times the size of where I live, but that's okay. I live next to Kansas City, so I get it. I do understand. Well, Kelli, give me a pitch for your firm. If I didn't know who you are, if I hadn't done any research, I hadn't looked into you, and you and I were on an elevator and we had 30 seconds or a minute together, and it said, "Oh, hey, Kelli Jones, nice to meet you. My name's Justin. Tell me what you do. Tell me what you do. Give me your pitch for your firm. Who do you help? Why do they come to you? What sets you apart?"
Yeah, so we help small business owners and entrepreneurs protect their brands, mostly with trademarks and contracts. So really the main goal is to help people be proactive when they are thinking about legal versus being reactive, coming to a lawyer when something goes wrong. Because if you handle all the legal stuff for your business as early as possible, it's ultimately going to save you a ton of time, money, and stress overall. So, it's better to handle it as early as possible than waiting down the line for something to go wrong.
Gotcha. And sorry, I think I hear my dog in the background there. I want to make sure I've got my noise removal turned on here. Um, so let me ask you about, well, I'm going to ask you about being proactive in a minute because I'm sure there's a lot of common pitfalls that people fall into. But let me ask you this first. What got you into law? Did you know you always want to be an attorney? Did you grow up watching, I don't know, Perry Mason reruns or LA Law or something like that? Or did you kind of stumble into this as a side venture and realize, hey, I've got a passion for this?
I definitely always liked any type of crime show. And I grew up reading like every Nancy Drew mystery book that was ever written. So it was kind of always in my head to go like towards that direction.
Mhm.
And then I kind of just kept like thinking about it and deciding like, okay, I feel like, you can go in so many different avenues with it. So may as well do it. So, but I wasn't like one of those people that was like, I know I want to do this kind of law from when I'm like 10 years old. Um, so yeah.
So what got you into trademarks, et cetera?
Yeah, so I always had an interest in intellectual property. I took a few different intellectual property classes during law school. And then in 2020, when COVID happened and everything, I was going to court every single day before that, working at a private firm doing mostly commercial litigation, which I was not a fan of. So I kind of knew that I didn't like going to court every day. And then courts closed all of a sudden. And then it was kind of just like the perfect storm of like, oh, courts are closed. Like everything is changing, everything's going remote. Let me get into a practice area that is pretty remote and all like transactional, and you can work with anyone anywhere in the country. So it was kind of like we're already all learning how to be on Zoom 24/7. So let me work with people where I can, that's how you meet the people, just on Zoom and not, in the conference room anymore. So yeah, it was kind of just everything that happened with COVID kind of just helped like pivot. And first, because I was at a small law firm, so first they ended up cutting our salaries, and then they kind of just started letting us go one by one because courts had been closed at that point for like 3 or 4 months. So summer of 2020 is kind of when that happened, and I was like, okay, I can start interviewing at other firms, or to do same type of litigation, or I can go out and start something on my own, and I chose that way.
Oh, that's awesome. That makes a lot of sense. And you're absolutely right. I love the fact that, in your niche, you can go after almost anybody. You can work with people across the country. And have you ever worked with anyone internationally that wants to secure a trademark in the United States? I'm sure that's something that also happens.
Yeah, it does. And if you're international, it's required to have a lawyer. If you're in the US, it's not. So, yes, I've worked with some international people to help them file in the US.
Awesome, awesome. So here's a very important question based on what I asked you a minute ago. Because you said you like to watch a lot of law shows. Who's your favorite fictional attorney?
Oh, attorney. Probably Carisi from SVU.
It's for you.
Yeah.
Okay, it's good to know. Why?
Um, I just I love Law and Order, and first he was an officer on the show, and then he ended up in the show going to law school and becoming an attorney. So I think probably just because he was in the show longer,
To
like
follow the
followed his
trajectory and
character.
get to know them. And okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I always find people have very interesting decisions and very interesting picks for that. The most common one I get, I think, is still my cousin Vinny, but
I don't think
a lot of
I
people are like, man,
I don't think I watched that movie until either towards the end of law school or maybe even after law school. But I remember everyone always kept telling me, "You're in law school, you have to watch this
yeah,
movie."
it's required watching, right?
Yep.
No, you need to know the law and you need to have seen my cousin Vinny. Those are the two requirements to be an attorney. So, uh,
Yep.
as we all know. So let's talk a little bit more about your wheelhouse now. You talk about being proactive. What are some of the biggest pitfalls people miss and why do they need to be like you don't know what you don't know. Again, the
Yeah.
tagline of this show is if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. But it's the same thing in this area, right? If you don't know what you don't know, you're gonna stumble into a minefield without even realizing it. So what are some of the biggest pitfalls or landmines that people step on when it comes to trademarks and patents and all of these things that you work in?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing I see is continuing to build a brand around a name that you don't have the trademark for yet, because the more, time and money you're putting into a brand, obviously the harder it's going to be to rebrand later on.
Mhm.
And that's kind of the biggest thing I see, that someone thinks, I think a lot of business owners think like, oh, I'm just, too small. I don't really need a trademark yet. I don't have to put money into like the legal side of things yet, or like no one else is going to copy me, no one else is going to know my name, whatever. And then when they do go to, pursue a trademark, they realize someone else already has something that's very similar. either that or they, get hit with a cease and desist, and then are forced to rebrand ultimately. So I think that's one of the biggest things, is that that is something that business owners should focus on early. That way they know, you want to build with a name that you're going to be able to keep,
Mhm.
and not doing that can sometimes, just cost a lot of problems. I had one client that was like number one on Google. She had she's an esthetician, so I think she had mostly lash studio, but so she was on, ranked number one on Google for her studio, and she worked years to get that in her location. And then she got hit with a cease and desist and had to rebrand and then start all over again. When she was, years in after working so hard to like build her brand. So it's much easier if you do that earlier, than having to, force to rebrand a couple years in.
In someone's situation like hers, are there steps that she could do on her own? I mean, I'm assuming it's always better to have an attorney. What steps can somebody take on their own, and when should they be like, you know what, I need to have a professional take a look at this?
Yeah, so there's always a couple things that I tell anyone to do when they're coming up with a name for anything, whether it's their business name, a tagline, their podcast name, anything that's going to kind of be part of like a brand identifier, that you want to definitely do at least a Google search for it to see what else is out there. And then also on the USPTO website, there is a basic free search that you can do. So I always tell people, like, it can't identify everything. It's not as deep as the search that we do once you hire us, but it's at least a good starting point. And sometimes it can help identify like major red flags that if you're coming up with names, you might see something that's already, there, and you're like, oh, okay, let's cross that one out and go to the next name. So at least it's a good starting point. So I definitely recommend at least doing that and playing around with that search to kind of see what else might be out there.
Gotcha. Um, so I'm realizing this is I'm not going to be self-serving and ask you a bunch of questions to help me, but I have a side brand, a little side project I started, it's a musical project. And I'm all of a sudden like, I never really thought about doing doing a trademark on it. But now I'm starting to wonder because it's taken off. I've gotten a few million followers on a couple of my social media accounts and reviews and everything else. I'm like, maybe I should look into trademarking this before it's too late. So now I'm like, what are all the questions I need to be asking? But that's right. I'm not going to use this as a free consultation. But I'm all of a sudden as I'm talking to you, I'm realizing, you know what? I actually might be in the market for something like this.
Yeah, well,
It's
I
funny, you don't even
typically,
realize. I didn't even realize it. Starting this conversation, I didn't even think about the fact that I could be in the boat of needing to talk to an attorney like yourself. And now here I am, like, oh yeah, you know what? It might hit you more often than you think. Do you find people? So, for instance, if they're doing something online, if they have a social media presence, if they have a very active Twitter account, at
Mhm.
what point does somebody need to start thinking about trademarking what they're doing?
Yeah, so I typically ask people three questions. Do you have something in your brand that you want to keep? So it's not something that, you think you might change the name of in a year, or it's just temporary kind of placeholder. So something you like actually like and want to keep. Then would you be upset if someone else popped up with the same or a similar name? And, you kind of should be upset if that happens, because it can cause people to be confused between you and them. And that's the entire point of a trademark, to prevent people from being confused between brands that have a similar or same name that are doing like, in the same industry. And then the third is, would you be upset if you were forced to rebrand? So that could be either you tried to go for the trademark and got denied because of someone else, or you got hit with a cease and desist and are forced to rebrand. So if you say yes to all three of those, you want to keep it, you'd be upset if a copycat popped up and you would not be wanting to rebrand, then it's time for a trademark. And I typically always tell people, like, one of the best things you can do in business is to have at least a consultation with a lawyer as early as possible, because we can go over the process, the timeline, and at least talk about your name a little bit, because sometimes that alone can help identify like major red flags with a name that, you might catch then, years prior. So even if you're not ready to like, invest in actually filing the trademark, at least have the consultation. Because then, at least you might be able to catch something that if you wait to have the consultation 3 years in, then, you might just have spent years and time and money building something that you then need to, there's maybe an issue with.
Yeah. That's good advice. I actually had a friend that also ran into this issue. Now I'm thinking about it. This was about a year and a half ago. He's about 3 or 4 years ago. He started a handyman job. He started his own company and it's taken off. And he called himself, I believe, as the hardworking handyman. I kind of helped him set up some of his assets early on, and he's in Pennsylvania in a little tiny town. And all of a sudden, some guy in California started sending him cease and desist letters and was threatening him because he had used the same name out in California. And I think he was more of like a lead generation company. He wanted to keep expanding. And so I think he was foreseeing, what if I ever expand into, all the way across the country and then I got to run into this guy. And unfortunately, my friend, he didn't know what to do. So he just went ahead and changed the name and everything. It was, a couple years in and he's a small organization. So it's not a hard thing to do. But it always felt very unfortunate in that situation. And sometimes I guess it's hard to see. I don't know if he would have done a search and even found this guy, or he might have been like, well, there's some other guy doing some sort of a handyman service using a similar name in California. Would that even be a yellow flag for most people, or should that have been a red flag?
It really depends because I mean it depends also if they have the federal trademark or not. That's one thing, but then also, yeah, it depends what they're doing too, because some things obviously are going to be more limited to
Mhm.
location versus things that are clearly, could expand and cause that confusion. If it is just like obviously working locally, then would someone really be confused between Pennsylvania and California? Probably not. So I think it really depends. Like, also, sometimes people like license the name out to other people, places, whatever around. So, that's a consideration too. And that's why also some people, if they have the federal trademark, maybe doesn't really even matter like where they're locally doing something because they might be licensing it out to other locations. But yeah, so whether or not they have the federal trademark would definitely be like the first question.
Okay, no, that makes sense. Um, Sorry, this is opening up a whole new world of thoughts for me. If somebody has an issue and they want to come to you, what does the process look like to work with you? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so typically they start with a consultation, and that's whether they're looking to, start the process or if they already have an issue and, they've gotten a refusal or they got hit with a cease and desist, something like that. So, trademark consultation, I keep them at $97 just because I want it to be accessible to even like people maybe even before they start their business or as early as possible. That way they can at least get that call with a lawyer and talk about it. So yeah, and then we kind of go from there if they need additional services, whether that's filing or a cease and desist or anything like that.
And then, I don't know if you can answer this or not, just out of curiosity. And I seriously might take you up on the consultation later, because I have a lot of questions about this that I didn't realize I had until just now. But is there a general cost? Like I know that filing a trademark can be something like $300 to $500 or something like that. I know that there's attorney issues, attorney fees, and everything else. Do you work on some sort of a sliding scale or flat fee? Does it depend on the complexity of the issue? What do people need to be expecting? Because I think sometimes people are afraid to talk to a lawyer because they're like, oh, I just can't afford it. Oh, it's too expensive. And yeah, hiring a lawyer is expensive because you're paying for expertise for sure. Like everyone understands that intrinsically. But what are people looking at getting into when they're entering into the world of trademark law?
Yeah, so if we're filing one trademark, I charge 26.50 plus filing fees. So basically that is an upfront cost just because most of the work is done within the first month or so. And the way that the government charges their filing fees is it's 350 per class of goods or services. So there's 45 classes and then all goods and services are split into that. So, like legal services in one class, all types of education and entertainment things are a different class, like courses, podcasts, social media type stuff, coaching, training, all of that is one class. And then, like hats, apparel, that's a different class. So that's where the filing fees kind of depend on what you're doing or what you're planning to do. and of course government, so that's how they get you based on, it's not per application, it's per class of goods that you're applying for. And typically the way that it works is the first thing that we do before we file is we do a full search to really assess the risk level of the name. That way we don't waste time and money filing for something that might not, have a good chance of success. So we do that full search, which is much more in depth than the basic search you can do on the trademark website, the USPTO website. And then if everything's fine, then that's where we actually file. And then the whole process takes on average about a year right now, to go through all of the steps. So yeah, it's kind of a little bit long, but you're essentially also, once you file, you're essentially holding your place in line. So at least there's kind of like that while you're
You
waiting.
raised your hand and said, "Hey, I want the trademark," so you're at least
Yeah,
there
so no
before
one
anyone
can
else
jump
can come
ahead
in
of you
behind
at
you.
least. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, this is a random question, but related. If you're in line, but then they reject yours, but someone is behind you, does the fact that you still filed first, can you go back and amend that and keep your place in line, or are
Yeah.
you okay?
So all initial refusals, you have 3 months to respond to.
Okay.
And most of them are, for some type of like administrative reason. Some of them are like more complex, like, you're too similar to so and so's name. But yeah, you'll always have 3 months to respond. And then that first refusal is always just an initial refusal. So you can respond, and like if they still don't accept your response, then you'll get a final refusal. So you kind of like, however you respond to the first one, you're not like out of luck having to restart. You'll always get that final refusal after.
Okay. That makes sense. Um, what are I don't want to ask this. We're gonna shift for just a minute, and we'll come back to this maybe. I'm a firm believer that you step up to bat enough times, nobody bats 1,000. And so we all have some swings and some misses. We all have some failures. I'm curious because yours is a very interesting niche. When I talk about a trial lawyer, and you've been in court, so maybe you have stories like that as well. You're welcome to share. But I'm a firm believer that as long as you learn from a failure, it's not really a failure, it's a slow burn win. Can you, Kelly, let me and my listeners know about a time in your legal career when you failed, or when you had a setback you weren't expecting? But what did you learn from that, and how did you carry that forward to make sure you're always giving the best care to your clients, or preventing these issues from happening again?
Yeah, one was when I was working at a firm and going to court every day. Um, we didn't really go to trial though. Like most of them would be, because I represented medical providers suing insurance companies. So most of the time, you would go to court and you'd have a list of like, oh, I have 5 cases with Geico today and like 3 with Allstate and like whatever. And then most of the time you'd end up, settling it in some way and just kind of having to work out the terms or whatever, and then put it on the record, and kind of that was, our day for the most part. But one day, but sometimes we would be like, okay, we might have to like go further. So we'd have to have like witnesses ready from, whatever medical provider we were representing, ahead of time. And I remember once, we were going, and I think we had already like called off our witness because we thought we were settling. And then they ended up making us start to go to trial. And I was like, great, I have to do a trial with no witness and just like be up here. Um, and we ended up starting, and I was like, saying whatever, but what I didn't have much to do knowing that my witness was not here anymore. And then so I think that we did end up like a little while into it, they ended up settling, because the whole issue I think was that like they had already kind of promised us that we were settling, so which is why we called off the witness. But that was definitely a lesson in not calling off the witness too soon, and also just being overly prepared versus, taking someone else's word for it,
Mhm.
that, of whatever the outcome is going to be. So yeah, I think we were more prepared after that. After like I had to go up there and kind of like look like a fool um in front of the judge. So
But you grew in humility, and that's the important part. Well, the flip side of that is successes. You worked with a lot of people. I was looking at your website earlier, 400 and 142 patents or sorry, trademarks registered, some still pending, 97% success rate. You've clearly, you know what you're doing. You've had some great success. What are one or two of the biggest successes you've had, the things you're most proud of?
Yeah, I think, sometimes we'll get a refusal for a client's trademark being too similar to someone else's pending or registered trademark.
Mhm.
And those are definitely the more difficult types of refusals to try to overcome. So I think one of my clients got a refusal for that and also for being, basically, I think they said it like failed to function as a trademark because it was more so like informational, like saying kind of a thing. And I submitted a refusal that had, so it was a response to the refusal. I mean, that just had I went so hard in my argument and then because we'll always submit, evidence, so like exhibits after for whatever reasons. And I went so much into like articles about like the grammatical effects of like what was in this, this term and like why so far of like why this term wasn't. I think I had 300 pages of exhibits that I was not sure if they were just like, I'm gonna just accept this because she clearly put so much effort into this, or they actually like sided with my argument. But either way, I was like, they accepted it, and now my client has a trademark for it. So that was very exciting. And
Kelli
also
Jones,
doing all of
trademark
that.
bully.
I was like, they might have just been like, this is way too much. She did so much. We're just gonna have to give it to her. So I'll take that too.
Um, so on a related note, and I don't know if you have anything like this, and I don't know what you can and can't share, so obviously be as circumspect as you need to be. One of my favorite questions to ask attorneys, I find attorneys deal with absurdities all the time. I mean, life is absurd sometimes. What's one of the silliest, weirdest things you've dealt with? Maybe somebody wanted to trademark something, is like, you can't trademark that. Or maybe you had a legal issue like this where it just absurdity unfolded. But what's one or two of the most absurd things you've encountered in your practice?
Probably just sometimes the way people respond to things. Um, because once I had a client come to me to file trademarks, but then also to at the same time send a cease and desist to someone that was copying her brand. And they were both fairly big on TikTok. And then so I sent we filed her trademarks and then I sent a cease and desist. And then the girl started making videos about me. I forget what she was exactly saying, but she was like, this like I don't know. She was just like making fun of all lawyers and being like jailhouse lawyers, like whatever. So it was just so silly, like the videos that she would make. And then other people were making videos, and one person actually took one of my TikTok videos because I'll make like educational TikTok videos. They
Hmm.
took it and they put a crying filter over it and, and reposted it. And they're like, you can't do anything about that. And I'm like, in the video, I was talking about copyright infringement. So then I filed a thing and got it taken down for copyright infringement. But it was just like the silliest time of, yeah, like I was like, oh, that's just a thing to think about that when we're putting our name, and also why, you always charge for cease and desist letters because you're putting your name out there and the person's going to read it. And sometimes they'll take it out on the lawyer for getting a cease and desist and make silly videos on the internet about you. So,
The the one thing you don't want to do in life is you don't want to take a civil trial lawyer to court, and you don't want to go after a copyright and patent trademark lawyer with something that's right in her wheelhouse. Like that is absurd. That's kicking the hornet's nest. But good on you for winning that one. I mean, in all honesty, that's hilarious. Um, people are funny.
yeah.
Who are your ideal clients? What are the ideal types? What's your favorite type of, because I know you said there's different facets of trademarks and everything else. What's your ideal type of client to work with? You could be fine working with everybody. That's all right. But is there a particular one that really calls to you, or that you find that you specialize in, or that there's some tricks that most people don't realize that you understand? Or tell me about that.
Yeah, so I do like overall, I have worked with a very wide variety of business, small business owners. But there are some that, just I guess also coming from with referrals and everything that I tend to like have a lot more of. So I do have a large client list of those in the beauty industry. So that have like spas or lash studios or anything like that. So that is one big area that I have. And that is surprisingly very competitive. Like I always tell people, if you're in the beauty industry, like you need a trademark before you even launch, because a lot of the words that people in the beauty industry use can kind of overlap. A lot of them like to use like skin or glow and like things that, like, so it's a very like small field there that you're in. So super surprisingly, probably one of the most competitive areas. And then I also have a lot of clients in the online business space. So a lot of ones that, maybe they're a service provider for something, either like copywriting, web design, or something like that. But then they also have some like either a coaching or a course or a podcast aspect of it. So I do a lot of filing in that like education and entertainment class about like any type of, um, courses, coaching, training, all of that, which I think is, I mean, now it's getting a little bit, but in the beginning, at least, it was kind of a newer area, I think, for the examiners at the trademark office to sometimes understand this whole like online, industry. So me also like being very much involved in the online industry, I think helps kind of it helps with like overcoming refusals and everything, and knowing really how to explain to the examiners what these people are doing with these like online businesses.
Gotcha. Let's talk a little bit about your social media presence, because you do have, like you said, I mean, obviously people come after you there stupidly. But you've got it looks like you've almost crossed, and I'm going to share this again here, about almost 10,000 people on Instagram, but that's a lot of people on Instagram,
Mhm.
especially for legal content. How did you start that channel? What kinds of things do you cover on that channel? Who should be following you on Instagram right now? And what's your favorite part about running it?
Yeah, so I actually really like social media. Probably one of like the few lawyers that like the marketing aspect. For me, it's always been kind of my like creative outlet. So I just try to like have more fun with it. Which also I think I try to make the legal stuff a little less boring for people so they actually pay attention to what I'm saying, hopefully. Um, but it's funny because I actually before I had my own firm, while I was working at the private firm, I was a part-time like spin instructor, boot camp instructor, very into like fitness. So that account used to be a fitness account many years ago. And in 2020, I literally changed the handle and I made a post and I was like, so we're not talking about fitness anymore. We're talking about law. Um, and then that kind of helped because a lot of people that I had met through fitness ended up having their own business of some sort. So then, then they came over as clients. Um, yeah, so I've been on social media for a while, very comfortable with it, and I just have fun with it.
You also have 36,000 followers on TikTok, which is impressive. I
Yes.
think I've got about 18 on mine. My account's a lot newer, so it's still growing, but that's good. You just got a new follower on Instagram and TikTok, by the way. You're welcome.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. So I'll be seeing your stuff and engaging with you as we move forward. Very, very cool stuff.
Yep.
What's something? Oh, go ahead.
I like posting about like pop culture or like things that like trademark issues that are, in the news.
Hmm.
Like Travis Kelce, actually that was Kansas City, Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes Steakhouse. They had a trademark issue. Anything like that, because I feel like people Oh, then you go into my not legal content. You don't need any.
Okay. We'll go
Um,
back to the top then.
but yeah, anything like that, I feel like kind of brings people to, pay attention a little bit more. So I like kind of trying to do content about that.
Gotcha. That's fascinating. Well, you at least got a new follower. For some reason, it's not letting me follow you on TikTok. Maybe I'm not logged in. I don't know. I'm trying to follow you on TikTok. It doesn't want to let me do it, but that's all right. I'll figure out how to do that later. But that's life. Well, this is fascinating. Kelli, when people come to you, I'm a firm believer you should, and this is here's some free social media content for you too, right? I always tell clients they should have social media presence, and you should set up maybe 10 FAQs and do each one as a question, like a frequently asked question, but also SAQs, so should ask questions. What's one of the questions you wish more people would ask you that they don't, or they don't think to ask about?
I think probably just like, when do I need a trademark, or, should I have one? Because I think a lot of people don't think about it until they're kind of already ready to do it. So I think, you know, thinking about that earlier, is probably something that I wish people realized, that, or like, when do I need a lawyer? And I would be like, right away. Um, so yeah.
I also noticed you mentioned legal subscription on your website. Can you tell my listeners about that? Who would be interested in something like that?
Yeah, so that is for a little bit more established businesses. I do have two different tiers though. But basically just so you can get whenever you have legal questions come up, you don't have to like book a new call. You can just message in the portal and ask your questions. And then also, we can do monthly projects, like whether that's like a contract review or a quick trademark search for maybe something new that you're thinking of launching or coming out with. You want to launch a podcast, or you're thinking of doing a course or something like that. So that way it kind of helps you be proactive. And then you also hopefully helps you, not have to stress when any legal thing does come up. You just know, oh, let me just message my lawyer. And that's what my legal subscription clients do. So
So
yeah.
it's kind of like a very affordable way to have an attorney on retainer, more or less.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think there's a lot of people that could benefit from that. Well, Kelli, I really appreciate you being on the podcast. We're already coming up on the hour here, so I don't want to take up your whole morning, but I really appreciate the conversation. Here in a minute, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you my three closing questions. Question number one, just to refresh your memory, and you can percolate on these for a minute, is obviously, if you could change one thing about your law firm as it currently exists, I gave you my magic wand and you could just change something. What would you change and why? Number two, if you can go back and meet young Kelli, give her some advice, maybe fresh out of law school, other than the obvious, buy a lot of Bitcoin and hold to 100K. What advice would you give to yourself and why? And number three is, if I gave you my magical pencil that's almost out of magical lead, but there's just enough in here to change one law, that's edit a law, add a law, or strike a law from the books, what law would you add, edit, or change? It could be in your wheelhouse, it could be national, it could be local, whatever you want to be. So while you're percolating on those, we're going to jump back over again. I keep sharing my screen. I've shared my screen more with you than I do with most people. I keep popping back and forth, but we're going to jump over here really quickly. I am talking to Kelli Jones of the eponymous law firm that bears her name. That is Kelli Jones, kellyjoneslaw.com. As always, we'll have links to her descriptions down below. She is a trademark attorney with a wide amount of services in this area. If you are a business owner and you need to know what your rights are, it sounds like scheduling a time to talk to Kelli would be great. $97 for a consultation fee is not bad at all, to know that you're getting actual sound legal advice, somebody who's paying attention to your case and everything else. Like I said, I'm probably going to be actually using her myself. I wasn't expecting that going into this call, but you never know. Life kind of throws you funny little curveballs. So I will probably be working with Kelli myself. So I'm saying this as somebody that is impressed enough with her that I think I would love to bend her ear about my own issues that I have. But if you want to do the same, you can visit Kelli Jones Law, Kelli, kellyjoneslaw.com. And as always, wherever you operate, always know your rights. Make sure you're working with a competent attorney. But I can say that I think that she sounds like she definitely knows what she's talking about. And obviously, I'm going to put some links down below to her Instagram and her TikTok as well, although I believe those are actually on her website, so you can find them if you want to follow her. But it sounds like she's probably got a good follow account as well, so it's worth your time. Our final sponsor for today is Rank with News. When somebody Googles your name, your company, your business, your firm, what do they actually see? Is it just your website? Or do they see real credibility, trust, and authority? Because the businesses getting chosen today aren't just visible, they're validated. That's where Rank with News comes in. Rank with News helps feature you, your business, your firm, in major media outlets like Business Insider, Yahoo News, Yahoo Finance, AP News, and more. And that way, when prospects are looking you up, they don't just find you, they find that they trust you. It isn't about running more ads, it's about owning your reputation at the exact moment it matters most when people are searching. Visit rankwith.news to learn more and book a time with a specialist to see if being featured in the news on a regular basis would work for you and your business. That's rankwithnews.com or rankwith.news. All righty, kill my screen share again here. So Kelli, question number one, I have a magic wand and you can change one thing about your practice right now. No questions asked. What are you going to change?
Um, I think I would probably change, that's tough because I actually don't know that I would change much with my practice. But probably just what I would change is having all of the things that I need to do to help with hiring people be because I'm now, starting to hire some people for help with different things. So probably have already made videos on how to use all the different tools that I'm using. So probably that because now obviously I have to do that now. So yeah, probably have more like SOPs done already that I have not.
I understand that completely. And I'm one of those people I'm terrible at outsourcing because I do it. I've got people that I work with as well. But man, I'd rather just do it myself. Like
Same.
I need to have that control. So I totally understand. I just drag my feet when I have to set up an SOP for somebody, but
Same. Yep.
I get it 100%. I understand fully. Okay, so question number two, we go back in time without breaking the space-time continuum and imploding all of reality in on itself. When we meet young Kelli Jones, and you're able to just go over and maybe whisper a piece of advice into your own ear, what advice would you give to yourself? And maybe by extension, other attorneys getting started or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, I think it would probably be to, tell myself that, it's not too late. Like you don't, whatever you do or whatever area of law you're in, you're not stuck there. You don't have to stay there. I think I very much, until COVID happened, I truly kind of just thought like, okay, this is the path I chose. I have to stay here and just do this until retirement. And like, that's just what it is. And then COVID happened and it kind of pushed me into starting my own firm and doing something different because I think once you are a couple years in to any area of law, you kind of feel stuck. Like if I go somewhere else, I'll have to take a pay cut, to like go back to and yeah, that might be true, but I think also like that still probably outweighs just as I was going to do, like suck it up for 20 more years, like that. Like, why did I even think that way? But now I'm so glad that obviously I wish like I changed my opinion on that sooner and, not just till COVID. But I'm really glad that I did because now I actually like what I'm doing. And it's just so much different when you actually like don't hate what you're doing every day. So I think, I think I've talked to a lot of lawyers. Like when I've shared that story, a lot of lawyers have said similar things to me about, that they felt a similar way. So I think really just, you're not stuck in whatever you're doing. And if there's something that you want to change, do it. Like, your 30s, your 40s, really anytime it's not too late to do that.
No, absolutely. That's good advice. It's good advice for anybody. Don't feel trapped.
Yeah.
Okay, so question number three. I am almost out of magical lead in this pencil, but I give it to you and you can make one change. Could be big, could be small, could be national, could just be getting rid of parking tickets. What change would you make?
Hmm. Um, I would probably change the requirements for who could potentially be I would change requirements for elected officials in terms of term limits, maybe, or like requirements of basically requirements of who can or could not be an elected official.
That's fair. Somebody once said, and I always thought it was kind of funny, rather than being ruled by Congress, I'd rather be ruled by the first 500 people in the phone book or whatever. You get like a truly representative sample. You get people in there that are nefarious. You get people in there that are very lazy, but you might
Yeah.
actually get a better balance of people if you just picked at random,
Yeah.
or some sort of a system. I've played with this idea before actually. So like a lottery where everyone, just like the draft only for Congress, like you got to serve your 2 years in Congress. You get
Exactly.
paid. You
I
have
was
to
just gonna say, like, anyone can serve 2 years. That's it. Then you go and, you're an unknowns.
the congressional lottery. That'd be interesting. I wonder if it would be easier for people in Congress though or like the people on the peripheries who know how to pull the strings behind the scenes to like get the new, the freshmen coming in. They don't really know what they're doing. They're totally out of water and be like, oh, here's the secret. And, then they kind of rope you in without realizing it. So it might even open things up to worse corruption. I don't know. But somebody once said, if pro is the opposite of con, is progress the opposite of Congress? And I've always wondered since then. So well, that's good. Well, Kelli, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me. I've actually really enjoyed this conversation. Again, I have kind of stumbled on things I didn't even realize I might have to talk to. So I will probably be booking a call with you at some point after we have this call. But I do like to let my guest have the final word or final say. Are there any last words of wisdom, thoughts, or anything you'd like to share with our listeners before I let you go?
I think just to, you know, a lawyer should be one of the first people you kind of think about when you have a business. Doesn't mean you have to, invest in every single thing all at once, but we can at least kind of help you build a roadmap of what legal things you might need over time. So it's not as overwhelming, but then at least to hopefully, save you time, money, and stress later on down the line.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That makes perfect sense. Well, thank you again very much for taking the time to talk with me and my listeners today, Kelli. As always, this has been the Attorney Post. I've been talking with attorney Kelli Jones, who runs the law firm that bears her name. That is kellyjoneslaw.com. That's Kelly with an I, Kelli, kellyjoneslaw.com. As always, we'll have links down below in the description. As always, this podcast, though we do talk about a lot of legal topics on the podcast, it does not itself constitute legal advice. And so if you ever find yourself having a legal issue, you should always seek the advice of a competent attorney in your area who focuses on a matter that you need help with. However, if you need help with trademark issues, I think Kelli seems like she has a great head on her shoulders. Sounds like her consultation service is very reasonable to get started. And again, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. So I would highly recommend you click the link down below, go visit her website and pick her brain for a little bit if you think you have a trademark issue, because $97 is nothing in the world of business. And if you run a business, if you run a concept like that, you already understand that that's a very small fee to pay. So I would strongly recommend that, based on the conversation I've had. As far as the podcast goes, if you are watching us on YouTube, we always recommend or love having a like, a subscribe, a share, leave a comment down below if you learned something today as well. If you're on any of the podcast repositories, please feel free to rate us, review us, etc. But the number one thing you can do to help us grow this podcast is simply this. If you know someone who would benefit from the discussion that we had today, please share this with them. Share the podcast, share the video, whatever it happens to be, because in the same boat as everyone else, if they don't know their rights, they don't have any. Until next time, I'm your host, Justin West. Thank you guys for listening, and be safe. Bye-bye.